Sure. So my name's Rob Cameron. Uh, I guess if you had to ask me my organisation at the moment, I've got a few that I'm involved in, but I guess the ones that take up most of my time, and certainly from a leadership capacity, is I run a couple of businesses that specialise in industrial cleaning called JMac. And that's probably where I'm doing most of my strict sort of leadership definition work in. Yeah.
Awesome.
Did
Awesome.
that answer that question, or was there another bit to it?
No, that's all good. Perfect. We know who you are. Thank you very much. What's the one thing you wish somebody had told you before you became a leader of people?
Uh, what do I wish somebody had told me? I think that being in a leadership position, really you have to understand leadership is just a task. It's it's a bunch of things that need to be done to achieve an outcome. Leadership isn't just a title, and it's not as simple as just getting um, a status which you can then use as a power to boss people around. And I don't think I ever thought it was exactly that, but I began to understand that it demands a certain set of skills and a certain bunch of stuff that needs to get done when you're in a leadership position. And it's not necessarily more or less important than any other role in an organization. It's just another role. And you know what? There are good bits with that role, and there are really sucky bits with that role. Again, just like any other role in an organization. Um, and I think it took me a while to really understand that, and I guess also to understand exactly when leadership becomes most important. So that there are probably a few of the things that I wish I'd understood a little quicker.
Nice. Perfect. Thank you. Do you remember that oh crap, I'm in charge now moment? What are your memories of that?
Yeah, and I think the first time I had a real leadership role, I was in a role called branch manager. And essentially, I was given a, a the branch of a business in the northern part of Melbourne, and that branch was responsible for a geographical area. And I had a team of, I can't remember exactly. I'm guessing it was about 10 people that I was looking after, most of whom were reporting directly to me. And that was the first time I'd been in a business where I'd had actual direct reports that I was responsible for. Um, so number one, I had people management responsibility. Secondly, I was responsible for a profit and loss. So I was given a budget and I had targets that I had to hit. And I guess going along with that is I had face-to-face contact with a lot of customers, um, and really understanding, I guess, how my team interacted with those customers and what that meant to hit a profit and loss outcome. Now, when I first went into that role, it was 2008, and throughout 2008, the GFC hit, global financial crisis, and all of a sudden, all of this revenue that the branch used to turn over began to evaporate. And essentially, in order for that profit and loss account to come in, like I don't think we were ever going to make budget at that point, but to be able to return a profit rather than a loss, I suddenly realized, well, if revenue is going down, that means we have to make costs go down. And I realized the majority of the costs that I was in control of were actually related to the people in my team, and I had to make a bunch of people redundant, which was a horrid experience, not one that I was planning um, or hoping to have to deal with. I thought I'd just turn up and we'd make all these magical numbers happen, and I was going to get high-fived for being such a successful manager and leader. But it didn't work out like that at all, and basically I had to. That was, I guess, oh shit, I'm the one in charge here. I'm the only one who can make this happen, and just trying to work out, is and have to end these people's jobs as the. I think that was my oh shit moment.
Oh, that's a baptism of fire.
Oh, it really was. It was horrible. Yeah.
Oh, that would have been quite
not much
traumatic
fun at all.
too.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of was. It was interesting. I had, in hindsight, looking back at it, I had a pretty hard-ass boss. And he was like, look, either you're going to take care of this problem or I'm going to take care of this problem. And if I take care of it, you're not going to like the outcome. And thankfully, as hard as he was, looking back, it's dealing with those moments of challenge that help build your leadership skills to be able to understand the implications of what might happen again in future. And I guess the other silver lining to that was, even though my boss was being tough on me, he also provided me with resources and access to people who could help me through that process. And thankfully they took pity on me and spent a lot of time coaching me through the process. But I'm kind of thankful, like, no one actually took that problem away from me. They all said, hey, you're in charge, this is yours to deal with. And as painful as that experience was, I absolutely learned and I grew and I became better for having gone through it.
Yeah, good. Wow. What was the first one that came to mind?
Oh, I think it was when I took a role that I wasn't very well suited for. So some people thought I would be well suited for it. I think I deep down knew that I probably wasn't. But I took it, number one, I guess, from a lifestyle perspective, because it was close to home. And number two, it paid really well. And I think I lasted maybe 12 or 18 months in that job and got made redundant. And it was a blessing in disguise, because it led to much better things, both in terms of my happiness, but also where my career took me. So, yeah, that's one. But again, it's not necessarily, I guess, from a leadership perspective.
No, but I think it's an interesting lesson to learn that sometimes going outside your comfort zone and doing something you're not quite sure of does actually point you in the right direction.
Yeah, and there's probably something in there that, maybe we shouldn't always be so scared of failure. I suppose I actually had the opposite problem looking back at it. I thought, no, I don't think I'll fail. I thought I'd bumble through somehow, and look, I kind of did. Like, I didn't fail, but yeah, I managed to I managed to get through, but like, if I'm honest with myself, my performance wasn't good enough for what was required in that role. And
Mm,
that was part of the reason they had to downsize, and I was part of that downsizing. So
yeah.
that was definitely one. Um, okay. I can think of one mistake more recently. Um, I hired someone a few years ago, and it was a pretty important hire. And I was conducting a reference check with this person's past manager, and the past manager gave them a really poor review, and said, I would not hire this person again, which is fairly direct and blunt feedback.
Hmm.
And I was in a situation where I was starting to get desperate to make this hire. I had a lot of information on the candidate, and I'd got information from a number of different sources. So obviously I'd gone through the whole interview process. I'd done a few reference checks. I'd also done some, shall we say, behind the scenes reference checks of people that had known this person and had maybe not worked directly with him, but knew a little bit about him. And I made a decision to hire this person, which I felt like was probably going to be a mistake. And as soon as I hired them, because I was getting desperate, I needed someone in that role. And I thought, I think they're just the best of a bad lot that I've got at this stage. And I thought I'll hire them and I'll start preparing a plan B. But something in my gut, given all the data points that I had, told me that I actually think this might work out. And in the end, it proved to be one of the best hires I've ever made. So in a sense, I felt like I was backed in a corner and was about to make a mistake, and I prepared to make a mistake,
Yep.
but it actually worked out really well. So
No, not where I thought that story was going to go.
I know. Well, I guess, as someone who worked in recruitment in the past, I knew how important reference checks were, and sort of what usually comes out of a reference check from a direct manager. But I guess there was a little more to the story that I wasn't aware of at the time, which was there were a few personal issues between the manager and the employee, which perhaps coloured that reference check.
Mm,
So,
wow.
maybe that's one mistake um, that came with a silver lining. But
Mm,
I think, the other thing that comes to mind, and maybe it's not so much out and out mistakes, but I've had lots of situations outside of my control that have happened that have turned out to be silver linings.
mm,
And, I can give the example of a premises that burnt down over the weekend and totally destroyed a business. And when I say destroyed, as in physically destroyed it, thankfully no one was hurt. But we did lose a lot of equipment and gear. And it actually threw up a lot of opportunity to rethink how the business would work. And 6 months later, we actually ended up in a much better place. And I think similarly, I look at situations where people have resigned for all sorts of different reasons, and I felt like that was a really bad thing at the time. And 6 to 12 months later, have looked back and thought, thank God that happened, because it actually opened up the opportunity to rethink what we wanted that role to be, who we wanted it to be in there, what our expectations of performance could and should be.
Yeah.
So they're perhaps the ones that more strongly jump out at me as having silver linings, as opposed to out and out mistakes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice
Mm.
work. You've and I remember when that fire happened, so I'm glad it was sort of, at the time it was all consuming, but in 6 months to hear what you did, that's great.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's sort of, it enabled us to get out of an expensive lease. It enabled us to, you know, transition the business to working from home.
Mm.
It enabled us to save a bunch of money, which we could put into paying people better. That enabled us to get better people in the business who could grow the business and do more stuff with it. It enabled us to hang on to people who we might otherwise not have, might otherwise have lost for
Yeah.
not being able to pay them quite as much as they were worth. So,
Well done.
so yeah, it's amazing what silver linings come out of things that at the time look pretty tragic.
Yeah. Oh, well done. I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
good.
me too.
Well, let me just stop that one.